friends, Kafka was a pretty sad dude. Then again, that seems to be a theme among famous writers that only become publicized after they die. Okay, probably not Poe, since he pretty well known for trash-talking other kiddos in the newspapers, but still sad nonetheless. But really, who can blame them for having this intense passion for expressing the feelings through literature, compared to the others? However, Kafka led a pretty mundane life. Now, mundane doesn't equal satisfactory, of course. The poor guy never really fit in anywhere. He was born into a middle-class Jewish family in Prague, was the only son in his family, and had a pretty strained relationship with his father, to boot. While his true passion lied with writing, he had no one to support him in his dreams, as his parents didn't understand it, especially his father. Kafka ended up with an office job that left little time for his writing. But he did make the most of it, as he managed to pump out a bunch of short stories and 18 novellas, one of the most notable being the Metamorphosis, an interesting story about the feeling of alienation through the protagonist's characterization, and even reflected a bit of Kafka's own life. To quickly summarize the story, our protagonist, Gregor, turns into a bug one day, and through his struggle of trying to get out of bed and also thinking about how lame his job is, he misses the morning train for work, causing his family and his boss to come knocking at his door. After some struggle, Gregor finally gets up and reveals to them that he is a large, disgusting bugman, spooking them all thoroughly. Gregor is then forced back into his room, where his sister, Gret, kicks him trash to eat every now and again for a few months. Over time, his family gets jobs to provide for them, since Gregor had previously been the only breadwinner, and his dad throws a few apples his way to make sure he stays in his room like the good goblin monstrosity he is. Eventually the family gets bored as to rake in some extra cash money. Gregor's sister busts out some sick jams one day and thoroughly bores the boarders, but not Gregor. In fact, Gregor thinks it's so great he crawls out of his nasty room to listen more intently, and also scares off the boarders and the money. Angry and also miserable, Gret, who used to be super chill with Big Ol' Beetle Man, says that he's gotta go. Seeing how miserable he's made his family, Gregor takes one for the team and dies. After seeing Gregor's corpse, the family is so relieved that they fire the cleaning lady that dumps his body, and takes a nice trip to the countryside and talk about how, despite everything, they turned out pretty okay. And that's it, that's where the story ends. Now let's get into some juicy stuff. If I didn't say it before, I'll say it now. I'm going to be focusing a bunch on how Gregor was written, because it ultimately does affect how things turn out in the story. Gregor's reaction to his transformation is pretty interesting, to say the least. Yes, while he is horrified by his new form, he lets his own mind wander off. In fact, his first thoughts after the initial shock was, literally,
how about if I sleep a little bit longer and forget all of this nonsense?
It isn't until he confronts his family and boss that he is somewhat concerned. Even then, all he's worried about is explaining himself to his manager and saying that he wouldn't be late in the future. The only real obstacle that he faces prior to opening his door is simply getting out of bed. Through this process, he just becomes complacent with his new state of being. Finding complacency seems to be a common trait with Gregor. Actually, he was the only person providing for his family, and although he wasn't the happiest at his job, he took it seriously and worked hard. Ooh, hey, doesn't that sound familiar? It should. It's pretty darn strikingly similar to Kafka's own situation. Except, you know, Kafka didn't turn into a bug. But hey, you never know, maybe Gregor never turned into a bug either. Some people even theorize that the story is more from the perspective of a man that has mentally transformed, if that makes sense. Heck, just look at the original cover for the book. Kafka had explicitly told the illustrator that
the insect itself is not to be drawn. It is not even to be seen from a distance.
So, we're left with the image of a stumbling man, walking with the posture of someone who might think they've turned into a giant, grotesque bug man. But I digress. Let's get back to Gregor. Even as a bug, he doesn't make a move to help or to change anything for himself or his family. He falls into a routine and eventually finds complacency in his bug body. Although he dares to traverse out of his room once, he learns not to do so again after his own father pummels him with apples and gets one stuck in his back. Another side tangent, how interesting is it that out of everything they have, it's an apple, which can symbolize a range of things from temptation to discord, that gets stuck in his back. Just some food for thought. Anyways, this causes a new routine to be set for Gregor and he adapts. It isn't until Gret, who had been the only person that was more or less on Gregor's side, pipes up with a complaint about the situation.
We can't all work as hard as we have to, and then come home to be tortured like this. We can't endure it. I can't endure it anymore. We've only harmed ourselves by believing it for so long. If it were Gregor, he would have seen long ago that it's not possible for human beings to live with an animal like that. And he would have gone on his own free will. We wouldn't have a brother anymore then. But we could carry on with our lives and remember him with respect. As it is, this animal is persecuting us. It's driven out our tenants. It obviously wants to take over the whole flat and force us to sleep on the streets.
It's then that Gregor fully realizes how his mere existence makes his family miserable and decides to die. It's almost as if he lets his family control his existence and adapts to whatever change they want/need, and they fully expect him to do so. In the end, becoming a bug is just another layer on top of a relationship that mostly benefited one side. With all the sacrifices Gregor had to make, he always did it to appease his family. Heck, even him dying finally made them happy. To that end, that can be the essence of being alienated, wanting to be a part of something and doing what you can to be a part of it, only to be all the more distant. And it sucks, really. But with the type of compliant personality that Gregor had, it became his downfall and his family's elation. That's all I have to say about Kafka's story. I hope my little rant wasn't too scattered. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna go take a nap now, or play New Vegas, I dunno. Oh. And I apologize for using a text-to-speech voice. Even though I have a good high-quality microphone, I just think this sounds funnier. Okay, goodbye now.
But where's the Family Guy? I don't see him anywhere.
He's making me cry.